Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Alvin Kamara, is he going to play on Sunday?
I would assume yes. I think Sean Payton didn't want to come out and say it because I do think he is a bit testy with Alvin Kamara and what has happened. And yet I think that he made it pretty clear that if there's a player who could miss practice and figure it out on game day, and he could be a part of Zoom meetings and such. And it's not like they are going to, rework the wheel in a week. So a lot of the plays that they will run, maybe it's tweaked slightly, but I think if there's anyone who could play without practicing, it would be Alvin Kamara. Now, if he does not play, I would assume Latavius Murray will be able to play just because I think he will be able to test out of the contact tracing and such. And so I still think Latavius Murray gives you a very good chance against a Bears team that's only average against the run. And we've seen Latavius Murray run well at times, and even last year against the Bears.
Michael Thomas, going to play.
I would expect him to play as well.
Who else are we expecting to get back for the Saints on Sunday?
I would expect Deontay Harris.
Nice.
I think they went on IR at the same time by design. I would expect C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was also on the COVID list earlier before Kamara. He would be able to get out of it in time to play. Also, I would expect Marcus Williams. The fact that he was never put on IR, I would suspect he would be able to play. Now, he hasn't practiced at all the last 2 weeks. I'm curious to see what he does tomorrow, but he's a piece of the puzzle that you want to have. They've played pretty well without him, but they're better with him, which I don't know if we were saying that 3 or 4 months ago, but they're better with him, and I do suspect that he should play as well.
Larry Holder's with us on Twitter at Larry Holder, theathletic.com/New Orleans. These two teams played in Week 8. The Saints won in overtime. It was the week before the Saints blew the doors off of Tampa Bay on Sunday night, and then they've been rolling really ever since with a little hiccup here or there. How different is this team today than they were in Week 8 when they went to Chicago?
I'll just tell you there was one starting receiver, technically, who got to start that day in Chicago for the Saints, and it was Jawan Johnson. If you remember that day, Michael Thomas was supposed to come back, but he gets into a fight with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, suspended. Emmanuel Sanders had COVID. He was out. Marquez Callaway, he was out. So they were without their arguably top 3 receivers. Traquan Smith played, but without those 3 guys, the offense is a little bit different. And at that point, Nick Foles was the quarterback. Trubisky, they were talking about having a Taysom Hill role. And, I mean, that was the legit talk in Chicago at that point. And I found it to be pretty wild. And yet the Saints seem to have that game in hand, and they could have finished it off if they would have converted on 3rd down and near the 2-minute warning, but Chicago gets the ball back, they drive down, kick a field goal, and the Saints escape with a win. And it was almost a tie because they kicked it within 2 minutes left in overtime. So, look, I think the Saints are going to be a stronger team this time around when they play the Bears. And I know Trubisky's going to play. He's playing a little better than he was before and a little better than Nick Foles, but I don't think it's dramatically better than what we've seen out of the Bears quarterback play all year.
The Saints didn't have Kwon in Week 8, and obviously they won't have him now. How big of a deal is it not having Kwon Alexander for this playoff run?
I think it's significant, especially in this matchup, just because they're going to try to run David Montgomery and Alex Anzalone. He's just got to play. Look, he played 98% of the snaps in Carolina. He's going to have to play and elevate his play, and they just have to use him. Zach Vaughn actually saw an uptick at linebacker, probably played about 30% against Carolina. I think against a running team, you might see him play more. That, of any point on the defense, I think is a concern. That second linebacker spot just because you don't go get Kwon Alexander just because. I mean, you got him because you didn't trust Alex Anzalone, and they don't have a lot of depth there. So I'm curious to see how they navigate that. But Matt, let me flip it on the other side.
Okay.
Roquan Smith left the game with an injury. There's a fear in Chicago that he won't play. He is Demario Davis on that defense, and he is as good of a player as Demario Davis. If they don't have him, that is a huge loss for them. So at least the Saints are looking a little bit better on their side of the ball at linebacker than maybe Chicago.
Do you lay out a scenario, Larry? Because look, the Saints are, at last I checked, they were 9.5-point favorites. It might even be higher than that by the time kickoff rolls around. Lay out a scenario where this could go sideways for New Orleans.
Think Week 4 Detroit, where Drew Brees, the ball gets deflected, it's picked.
Oh, yeah.
They go down 14-0. Some crazy things happen. Something like that. I don't think this team comes out flat like they did last year in the Wildcard round. And look, Minnesota is a better team back then than Chicago is now. And I'm not projecting some blowout win by the Saints because I've learned my lesson last year. I thought they were going to steamroll the Vikings, and it didn't happen. But I think this team is at least they're more on the ascending path rather than just kind of cruise controlling into the playoffs. But you cannot have some sort of early breakdown with a pick. You can't let Allen Robinson beat you early on a deep ball because also their number 2 receiver, Darnell Mooney, he got hurt in the last game too, and he might not play either. That hinders the Bears' offense. So you can't have a mental breakdown, whether it's defensively a missed assignment early or an early wacky turnover that turns into a pick six or a fumble recovery. If the Saints get ahead early, I think it's hard for Chicago to come back.
It's could be similar to what happened this weekend with Chicago and Green Bay in Week 17.
Right.
Is it fair to say, though, I mean, we've seen the Saints, I mean, last year with Teddy, this year Brees went up there and they were Sands, as you mentioned, like their top 4 receivers, that the Saints are this is just a bad matchup for the Bears. Just like, to your point, the Vikings are a bad matchup for the Saints.
Bears fans are pretty pissed at me right now because I wrote my cheat sheet usually comes out on Friday. I scratched it together and put it out yesterday, and I have who has the edge in all the matchups, whether it's quarterback, running back versus linebacker, pass catchers versus coverage, O-line versus pass rush. I gave the Saints the edge in every single category. Outside of kicker, punter, and returner, I gave a push. And Bears fans, they were dying on this hill. Cairo Santo is definitely better than Will Lutz. I was like, if that's the hill you're dying on, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You don't want to get too comfortable, but the matchups everywhere, they all favor the Saints. Like everything. Like if Drew Brees wants to throw on the Bears, their secondary is not good. And Kyle Fuller, his numbers look okay, but his last 5 games, he's had like a 110 or higher passer rating against in every matchup. He is their best corner, and he has struggled. So it all spells to a Saints win. But look, it all should have spelled to a Saints win last year, and it didn't happen.
Before you go, and I think we all agree the Saints are going to win this game, and it would take something wacky like you proposed for it not to go their way, but it is the NFL and the Any Given Sunday thing. Look ahead at the NFC playoff bracket. What do you foresee? And look, all right, let's just be clear. Do you foresee a scenario where Tampa goes to Green Bay in the divisional round and could get a win?
I can see that happening.
Do you think that that's likely? Do you think that's a likely scenario that Tampa, as the 5, is the lowest remaining seed and goes to Green Bay in the divisional round?
I see it likely that they go there. I don't see it likely that they win. But there are plenty enough reasons for me to look at the matchup and say, well, Tampa can beat them. So I think in that sense, it's weird. Do you want to play potentially Tampa in the NFC Championship game and you're building a third time? I mean, probably because you don't go to Green Bay, but still, Tom Brady in an NFC Championship game and they're on a roll, that's a hard matchup. But if you get there, then the Saints are on a roll too. So, hey, it's probably the best scenario that they could think of even though it's a tricky matchup. But still, it's something that I could see. I would assume it's going to be Tampa, Green Bay in the divisional round. I'm not going to assume that Tampa's going to go up there and win. Can they? For sure. But is it likely? I'm not going to say it's likely they win.
No. I would not mind at all playing Tampa for a third time. I know the whole thing about it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but Larry, for the same reason we were just talking about Saints-Bears or Saints-Vikings, I think that's an awful matchup for Tampa.
The Saints have their number. I agree. Look, the matchups there, they favor the Saints. There's no doubt. I'd rather the Saints D-line against Tampa's offensive line. I would still take the Saints offensive line against Tampa's defensive line. I think Tampa's secondary has gotten a little shakier. I don't mind the secondary matchup of the Saints versus the pass catcher. So I map it out that way. I still like the Saints to win that game. But hey, I think everyone gets a little nervy at this time of the year. So hey, so that's just kind of. I bet you the NFL would love a Brady Breeze winner goes to the Super Bowl. I don't think they'd mind that.
I would certainly like to see it. He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. Read us up, theathletic.com/New Orleans. He is a noted president of the Kyle Trash fan club, and he's with us every Tuesday. Thank you, Larry.
His name is Trask.
That's what I said, Trash.
I might be the only member, but I'll die on this hill like Cairo Santos is much better than Will.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a GM, and you can get Cairo Santos for your kicker, and Kyle Trash can be your quarterback. Thank you, Larry.
All right, Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.